You know, if there's one thing that the enemy is going to try and rob you of, it's your ability to trust, which is essentially your ability to have faith. Because something that you're required to trust in means that you're surrendering yourself towards that thing in which you are trusting. Problem is, a lot of us have released trust to things that we should never have trusted and not trusted the one thing we should have trusted, and his name is Jesus. And because we're introduced into a world where essentially we depend and rely on people, beginning with our own families, and then that moves on into things called marriage and children, work relationships, business partnerships, sports teams, trusting that the All Blacks were going to score that try in the last minute last night. The bottom line is, I think we've all been let down. And I equally say we've let people down. Is that fair? If you haven't, you're the first. Congratulations. But the point I'm trying to make is that we, whether we like it or not, have to contend with this issue. And whether you realize or not, it would become the defining factor of your faith, because the basic principle of faith is trust. That trust vested not in us, not in the pastor, not in the building, and not in you. Trust only ever was intended to belong in one place, and that's called the Godhead. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge the way. In all your ways acknowledge the truth. In all your ways acknowledge the life. And he shall direct your path. Lean not on your own understanding. Whatever you lean on, you trust in. Whatever it is you seek to lean on is that which you trust in. We are only ever meant to lean on God through his Son. We were not created to lean on anything else. Not to lean on man, not to lean on man's institution, like what? Organized religion. Not meant to lean on self. I know it's easy for you to say there, fellow with the Bible. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I'm going through. We can all play that game. But, here's the bottom line. Doesn't matter what we're going through. It's who's going through us that matters. It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in princes. Okay, so he's made the point twice there. Trust means to flee to a place of refuge, right? In other words, it's a place of protection. So the habitat of the new creation as it pertains to his protection is in Christ. Right there. That's it right there. Confidence means to set one's hope and confidence upon anyone. Okay? So the confidence and hope of a new creation is in the person of Jesus Christ. He's our confidence. He is our hope. Right there. And God sought to settle the trust issue from the outset. We looked at that as it pertained to Eve, right? The subtlety of the snake in the garden was not that he was going to try and get Eve to trust him, but that he was going to try and get her to trust herself. So at the point that Eve allowed herself to make a judgment on things pertaining to the spirit based on what she could apprehend with her senses, she was sucked in. And at the point she acted upon trust out of self, she found she was uncovered, and so was Adam, right? And so their instinct was to now create a structure called a fig leaf environment that they could put their trust in to compensate for the trust or safety that they had lost, yeah? And so that was called Fig City Church, right there. The first religious action to sew fig leaves together that we could put our trust in. Yeah, right there in the garden. Fig City Church. Pastor Adam and Pastor Eve. Yeah. Jesus comes, he sees the fig leaf and curses the thing. Does that not make sense? Because when did creation tell the Creator what it should or should not do, or where it should or should not go, who it should or should not be? That's the arrogance of man. That's pride in his heart. And the human self-default position is to try and set itself up in competition with the Creator. Yeah. And that's essentially what Eve was doing when she took trust out of God and put it into herself. So God has no equal. There's no refuge or protection outside of Him. So in terms of security, there's no trust value outside of Christ. None. Okay? Now, so God has no equal, Richie. You're sort of like stating the obvious. Well, am I really? Because if I was, then how come there are so many who prefer to trust the system? You mean social welfare? No, I mean religious welfare. That's what I mean. Because, He gives this command about not setting up carved images, right? That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. They went and set themselves up. We're going to put our trust in that carved thingy-majingy that the priest made there, that we actually all paid for. Yeah. Because the priest told us we should. I'm just telling you Bible. So what's happened is now, what was meant to be the object of their faith, who is God, has been rendered right down to human. And then now rendered even lower than what human makes. Yeah. And it's for that reason we find, as we wind the clock forward, Israel's putting pressure on Samuel the prophet. We want a man to trust in. Look what happens. 1 Samuel 8:4-8. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Look, you're old. Your sons do not walk in your ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all other nations." So they want a system that's akin to or looks just like the secular business world. Because that actually looks like it's doing really well. That CEO is cracking it. He is on the Fortune 500 all the time. So that's what we need, Samuel. Build us something that looks just like the world. Samuel's not impressed because he knows not meant to be trusting in that system. We're meant to be trusting in God. And it's actually because of our lack of trust in God that we're in the situation that we're in that's forcing us to rely on our senses to try and make a spiritual judgment based on what we see evidentially in the natural world. Can't do it. Evidence in God's world is His word. So what happens is, in verse 6, but the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." So Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Heed the voice of the people and all that they say to you, for they've not rejected you, but they have rejected me." Sad, isn't it? So when you break this all down, it's a matter of trust. Israel's wanting to trust themselves, and they want to vest that trust in a human to represent themselves, and then it just removes all responsibility off them, puts it all in the human, and the human's quite happy because God goes on to say, I have not included it here, the characteristics of that particular king, and that in no less than 6 or 7 times he says, he will take, 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 and he will take. He will take your sons and your daughters. He will take the best of your livestock. He will take the best of what you make. He will turn them towards His own work. That's what He says. Oh, by the way, He's going to take a tithe of what you make. So now this king here, Saul, decides to manipulate the tithe principle and point it straight towards his own self. And then in the end, God says He's going to take you. In other words, you're going to serve Him. Guess what happens? Israel say, oh, that's all good. Give us the king anyway. Wouldn't you feel like that? In terms of God's actually, He does look at them and say, Moses, I'm warming up the flamethrower. Don't do it, God. He says, yeah, you're right. Hosea, I'm going to love him freely. Wow.